Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach centered and people focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three amazing guests today to answer this question. How can you provide guidance while empowering your team members to become more solution oriented? Man, I am excited about the three guests we have today. So let me do a quick introduction, beginning with Amy Childs, owner of Align Executive Coaching, where they help empower leaders to achieve alignment in their professional and personal lives. With a decade of coaching experience, leveraging certifications in professional coaching, emotional intelligence, and change management, her organization employs proven tools to foster leadership growth and personal transformation. Amy, welcome. Jumping over to Aaron I, that proud Michigan State alum with his degree in construction management, currently serving as a project manager and estimator with Dykhouse Construction up in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. Aaron, welcome to the show. And last but not least, George P. Kansas, three-time cancer survivor, performance coach, and speaker trainer. He works with his wife, Tracey, coaching spiritually inspired couples and works with high-performing men in life transition. I cannot wait to hear your responses. So, Amy, starting with you, how can you provide guidance while empowering your team members to become more solution-oriented?
Okay, well, thank you, Kyle. It's great to be here. And such a fun question for me as an executive coach. I love to be in the place of asking really hard questions. So, even though it's a solution focused question and you're wanting answers, I love to help my clients stay in the place of really finding out what is the right question to solve. What is the real problem? Oftentimes, I find that what they think is the problem is not even really close to what the real problem is. So, asking the hard questions, what is the real challenge here? What is that future vision of what do we want to see as different? I think is very important. And I will say sometimes my clients get mad and they're like, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what the answer is. Tell me what that solution is. And the place I find the most valuable for transformation is to stay in the question asking phase, to say, what does this look like? How could you think about it differently? What have you already tried? A lot of those challenging questions that make people think. So I don't have to do as much of the hard work. They get to do it. So it's a very fun thing for me. And then explore those possibilities. What would that look like if you did this or that? And how would we know if it was successful? Setting up the success criteria for it. So, staying in the place of asking the question for clarity is my guidance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an important way to distinguish empowerment. It doesn't mean stepping back. Yes, we want to step back and give people autonomy, but it means maybe stepping in differently. And then, as you stated, that's more about asking those questions to empower them to think differently than it is telling them and offering up solutions. I love it. Aaron, let's jump over to you. Aaron, how would you answer that question? How do you provide guidance while empowering your team members to become more solution oriented?
Yeah, and we get this quite often with problems that show up on jobs and everything else. So a lot of the times it turns into very similar to Amy is asking the question of what would you do? How would you solve it? What are your solutions? Because coming with just a question is an easy way for people to kind of, I want to say cop out, but have that like, hey, I don't want to take care of it. You need to give me something. But to ask them the question of what would you do if I'm not here? What is your solution? Give me a couple of answers, and then taking those and kind of expanding on it. And, I found that the more questions you ask on their questions, a lot of times they come up with their own solution, a solution that is the correct one or probably would be the correct one. But sometimes it's just creating the confidence within those people to um, make those decisions. And over time, you hope that that continues to build the confidence in them. So that way, some of these questions that maybe are simple solutions or simple questions to answer can be answered without having to ask the question. Can be answered within and it's a simple thing, but a lot of times people just they don't want to make distinction, don't want to make that decision on their own, and it's easier to kind of come to others. But when they start building the confidence within themselves to make those decisions, you can see a big growth.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point with the ability to start to answer those questions. You do see that confidence boost, right? Otherwise, we keep telling people and we unintentionally train them to do the work for them. And I think it's important as you think about asking people questions. You and Amy both, I think we're spot on with that. Is as they begin to answer and process, that lets us understand their thinking patterns, right? How are they processing to get to the answers? And is there something that we could do to guide that or help them or offer a thinking model to help expedite their decision making going forward? I love it. George P. Kansas.
Yes,
Cross
sir.
Country George is what I'm going to call you. And our listeners don't have the time to hear all of that story, but maybe on another one. Jump in and tell us, what would you add to Amy and Aaron's answers on how you provide guidance while empowering your team members to become more solution oriented?
Great question and great answers so far. It's great to be here, Kyle. I look at things from through the perspective of one of my early leadership schools, and that was sole custodial single parenthood. And I remember taking custody of my children. My daughter was 20 months old. My son was 4. And what was my objective? To raise healthy, interdependent, self-actualized humans, and which is pretty much our objective as leaders with employees and team members too. And so what I like to think about with when I'm leading a team, whether we're putting a live event together or leading a corporate group or whatever the configuration is to set unreasonable expectations and get out of the way and allow them to confound those expectations. And what I mean by that is, I've always viewed mistakes. I grew up neurodiverse, making a lot of mistakes, confounding my teachers throughout my childhood. And so I learned very fast. If I started taking all that criticism personally, I was going to have a very tough time of it. So I looked at every mistake as tuition in my degree towards excellence and results. So so by getting out of the way and say, look, go do it your way, figure it out. I won't be far. Just like when I taught my kids how to ride a bike, I was never that far away. So if they fell down, we get them right back up, brush them off, get back on the bike. The same is true if they're setting up a big room for a live event. I set the expectation. What's the experience we're trying to create? How do you want this person, the moment they walk into this space, do you want them to feel loved, held, heard, safe, etc.? Create that experience however you would create that experience. And if you hit a snag, I'm not far away. And then if it fails, if they make a mistake, if they set something up wildly out of expectation, we review it, we look at it, just like it's been said, answer those questions, and come with curiosity, come with a beginner's mind, because life is too unpredictable to expect that we're going to get it right all the time.
So true. Yeah. And I love that the beginner's mindset piece, right? We call that kind of a zero-based learning, right? Where you just kind of come in and you're, okay, where do we go from here? Right.
Yeah.
The common thread I think I'm hearing is leaders don't just solve problems, they create problem solvers, right? Think about a leader, somebody who was a leader in your life that pushed you to solve your own problems. And then what impact did that have on the way you approach it now? And now you may have finessed it some, but I'm curious, kind of think about early on, who was somebody that maybe modeled some of the behavior you guys were just describing? Who wants to go first?
I'll share something. I think. Oh, yep.
Go ahead, George.
Yeah. I remember an early mentor and eventually a business partner of mine, Zig Ziglar, beautiful human being, big heart, great speaker. He said on a tape long before I ever met him, if you do more than what you're paid to do, eventually you'll get paid more for what you do. And that stuck in my head so deep that every job I ever took, I strove to do more than I got paid to do. Whether I ultimately got paid more or not didn't really matter to me, because I always knew if I didn't get paid more in that job, I'd get paid more in the next job. And this idea, the what that adopting that mindset requires is that we are always reaching for more. We're always looking for an opportunity to solve a problem, in this case, to fill an empty space, to satisfy a need. So we're always looking. I think one of the greatest gifts an entrepreneur has is their ability to be constantly looking out for what's missing, and then figure out how to plug that hole, right? And so that philosophy for me, as demonstrated by the so many beautiful stories that Zig Ziglar told, and that I eventually, by just by adopting that mindset, you know every the dozens of jobs I've had and the many wild experiences I've had in life give me lots of opportunities to point to, yeah, by reaching for that, whether I was a success or not, I learned a lot from that experience. I brought more to that than was there before. I took more from that experience than most people in that experience would take. That kind of thing, I think, just makes for a really beautiful life, not just success or excellence or uh, the rest of it.
Yeah, I love that you brought him up, and he had such an incredible way of taking the simplest things and making an impact with them. I remember many years ago reading something he wrote that stated simply, if you want to write a book, start writing. I mean, it's not rocket science. You start writing. That's it. You don't have to have everything laid out perfectly. Just start writing. Awesome. Aaron, what would you add to that? Who maybe inspired you?
For me, honestly, a lot of it came from, way back when I was younger, but when I did a lot with Boy Scouts when I was younger, all the way from when I was in, 10, 11 years old, all the way till I was 18, 19, continued a little bit in college as a assistant leader. But we had a lot of great leaders in there. And I'm gonna tell you what, trial by fire is going to become a leader of a bunch of kids that are your age or slightly younger who don't want to be led at all, and trying to figure out how to kind of, maneuver them in the correct direction. And herding cats is probably a good way to put it, but we had a great group of leaders. Tom Lowry was one of them, and Mike Consitis and a few others that just really put the leadership in our hands and let us kind of figure it out, make mistakes. You make the food list, and if you make a mistake and you get there and you don't have something, well, what are we making then? And same thing with setting up tents and setting up this. And it was always, you guys figure it out. And we're here to help if you need help. But at the same time, we want you to learn, you to figure out how do you kind of direct a group, and hey, we want this group to do this and this group to do this. And it takes time. So I think for me, that kind of really set up how I view leadership from the beginning right there when I was younger, of just kind of having to learn it, and then, letting them or having them allow us to be able to make the mistakes and be there when we needed it, but then be able to continue to make the mistakes and learn from them. And that really kind of showed me, if you can do it at that level, you can keep doing it at another level.
Yeah. Yeah. So much coming out of that. The confidence to make mistakes, right? And not feel like you're going to be throttled for it, and be able to just say, hey, what did we learn? How are we going to move forward? Right. I love that. Amy, what would you add?
Yeah, I think the piece that I keep going to, and it sounds a bit cliche-ish, is being a listener. A good listener actually helps you find solutions. And some of the greatest mentors that I've learned the most for would not give me the answer, but they sat in that place where they had great resumes themselves and I knew they had amazing accomplishments, but they would listen to me, ask the right question to work it out myself for my culture, my company, my problem, whatever that be. And then the answer became much clearer to me for my situation. And it can be a bit intimidating at first because you just want them to tell you what to do and give me the guaranteed outcome. And that doesn't actually work very often. And of course, they would, give me some tips and tricks and helpful ideas. This is what worked for me. But boy, when you can listen and stay in that place, you can really find your own solutions. And over the years, as I've grown confident in letting my clients find their own solutions, even when I think I know the answer, I can tell them and we could have a 2-minute coaching session and be done. Those are not fruitful. So that's my answer. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and I think that's another really good point is sometimes we may have an answer, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the answer that they can buy into or that will be effective for them. Right. And I think that's a really important piece to distinguish. I love all three of your examples. I think, again, we kind of bring this full circle with the first question, in that providing guidance while we empower others. It's not about the leader being able to pull all of the levers. We've got to teach the people how to do it. And sometimes that means letting them fail. And I think when we shift from giving the answers to helping people think differently or think for themselves, then we may actually stop being part of the problem, right? And we start being more of a catalyst to help them drive things forward. And I think that's really what Inspired Action is all about. So with that, we're out of time. I want to thank you guys all so much for joining us from really all over the country. Although I think we've got the middle part of the country lined up with where George is somewhere in Nebraska, but thank you guys all so much. I hope you have a great weekend ahead. Thank you guys all for watching. Be sure to join us on LinkedIn every Thursday at News Central for the newest episode and anytime on our YouTube channel at MindFit Coaching. Thanks again. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.